Hi, I'm Elise Westhoff of the Philanthropy Roundtable, and this is Doers to Donors, where you'll meet inspiring innovators who are making a lasting impact through meaningful philanthropy. Today, my guest is Bernie Marcus, co-founder of the Home Depot. Bernie, I'm thrilled you could join me today. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you interviewing me today as well. Let's get on with it and see what fun we could have.
I love it. Well, I want to start at the very beginning. Can you tell me a little bit about what it was like for you growing up? What were you like as a kid?
Okay, now, I'm 92 years old. So, I'm lucky I can remember everything, but here goes. I grew up in a tenement in Newark, New Jersey. My parents were Russian immigrants who spoke no English, poorer than poor. But what we did have was a great family, and we had a lot of love in the family and a lot of caring. My parents always talked about, number one, how this was the golden land. You could do anything in this country, and you could be anybody you wanted to be. It was a positive attitude that they had. That if you had education and you worked hard, that all good things would come to you. So growing up was great for me.
You definitely had a focus on education and also you were allowed to be independent. So what did you decide to do next? How did you get to become the founder of Home Depot? Tell me about that path.
Well, we have a great book called Built from Scratch. It tells a lot of these stories. And I couldn't give it to you in one fell swoop, but I just wanted to be successful. And I think that since we had so little, and I would see a lot of wealth around, I wasn't jealous of them. I wanted to know how they were successful. How did they get there? There was never jealousy. It was a question. And from that point on, when I would meet successful people, I would say, what do you do? How do you do it? And they would explain to me, and I would listen to them and try to formulate. I wanted to be successful.
So what gave you the idea to start the Home Depot?
Well,
what sparked that?
So somewhere along the line, this whole thing, and I worked here, and I ended up running a chain of stores called Handy Dan. Mm-hmm. I spent a lot of time in the stores talking to customers, and you can never really give them what you want. And somewhere along the line, I started thinking, boy, what would this evolve to? Now, this wasn't my company. This was somebody else's company. And Ken Langone came into my life. Mm-hmm. Ken Langone, who was a New York banker, entrepreneur, he once asked me, I remember it had to do with Houston, why I was opening so many stores. And I said to him, I have to open that many stores because someday somebody's going to open a store that will put all my stores out of business. And he said, what store? And I said, it's not here. Nobody has done it. He says, where is it? I said, it's in my head. He said, tell me about it. I said, no, I'm not telling you about it. Because he was an entrepreneur and he would go do it with somebody else. But that's not the case. And when finally I got fired from Handy Dan, at the age of 49, I was out of work. And I remember calling Ken up, looking for a little sorrow. He said, well, this is good. You can get off your ass and open the store. You've been hit by a golden horseshoe. Get off your ass and let's open the store, those stores you told me about. Before Home Depot, everybody out there should think about that. Many of you don't know what the world looked like before Home Depot. It was all stores that if you wanted to buy electrical stuff, you went to an electrical store, you went to a hardware store, you went to a paint store, you went to a lumber store, and they were all complete. The hardware store, the electrical store were all complete, carried everything. And we just took that and put that under one roof and hired the kind of people that you have in these single stores, qualified people that really knew how to use the tools, who knew how to do the jobs and could help people do it. As Home Depot grew, we started to really become stronger, and our concept took hold, and the brand Home Depot became a brand. We would see it in cartoons, we'd see it, mentioned on TV, because everybody wanted to go to Home Depot. It was a great time, and of course, we ran this company. We opened our first store in 1979, and I retired from the company and gave up my title and left the board, etc., in 2002, but it was a great run.
So when you think about your philanthropy, you've done so much. First of all, you contributed so much through your business, right? On its own. That is an achievement and has added so much value to so many people's lives. But then on top of that, you've decided to give some of it away, a lot of it away. Tell me about when you started thinking about being charitable in addition to everything else you've done.
When I was poor. When I was running Handy Dan, I'll tell you the story of what sparked the entire interest for me, really sparked it. Remember, up until that time, I was working 60, 70 hours a week. It was real hard work. I was paid a lot of money as CEO of a company, but I had a divorce and paying an ex-wife, and I had 2 kids going to college. So there wasn't much left, and I didn't have much to give to charity. But one day, something happened in my life, and it's almost as though God makes things happen to you that change your whole attitude. I had a young man that worked for me. He was a district manager. And he came into my office, and he had tears in his eyes, and he sat down, and he said, "I want to say goodbye to you." And I said, "Oh my God, why are you leaving?" I mean, I thought he's quitting. Yeah. I said, "Why are you leaving?" And he said, "No, I'm not leaving." He started crying. He told me I had a problem. I went to a doctor, and they did tests, and he told me to put my airfares in order because I'm dying in about a month or 2 months or 3 months, whatever it was. And, I started crying with him. He had a wife, he had 2 kids, and all of a sudden, a young guy, and his life was over. And I remembered an affair that I went to, a charitable affair, and they were honoring City of Hope in California. And the president of the City of Hope was talking about cures that they had for cancer patients, and mostly younger people, but it was also older people. And he said to us, if you ever have a problem, you want to call the City of Hope, and maybe we can help you out. So I actually picked up a phone, I found the number, called the president of the City of Hope, and I said, I have a young man. I explained the whole situation. He says, send him over and we'll look. We don't know if we can help him. We really don't know. He went there, and they were so nice to him. They didn't treat him like a patient. They treated him like a human being. They sat with him. They taught him. They did all the tests. Then they asked him to come back with his parents and with his wife. And they sat with the family and explained that he had a terminal illness, but that they had a clinical trial, and that he was proper. He could be taken into that clinical trial. The end of the story is that they saved his life. And here's somebody who was going to die in a very short period of time, and his life was saved. Well, when he came back, his mother and his father came to my office and thanked me with tears in their eyes. And at that moment, I knew I didn't do it, but I helped save his life. Mm-hmm. And the impact on me was an impact that would last the rest of my life. That doing things for people, outside of trying to make the money to pay for your own things and pay for all the toys that you want to have, et cetera, et cetera. And I got involved with the City of Hope. And in fact, so involved that I went on a board. But I'm the only one on the board that had no money. I mean, I would give them $1,000 a year, and that was like a big deal for me. But I was on that board for 35 years.
Wow.
And we started raising money for the City of Hope in our industry. And we raised hundreds of millions of dollars.
Wow.
Before I left in 2001, 2002, the last dinners that we had for our industry, we raised $25 million one night.
Wow.
That's pretty big. And that all went to cancer research. It all went to saving lives. And I have to tell you that became the basis of what I wanted to do with my life. And I remember sitting with my wife overlooking Mulholland Drive in California, just before we got married. This is my second wife. And I said, one of the things you should understand about me is that I'm never going to buy you big rings. I'm never going to give you jewelry. I said, I would rather help a kid with cleft palate than do that. And so if you're willing to marry me under those circumstances, you're never going to have the wealth that a lot of people have. And this is when we were poor, I want you to know. And she agreed to it, and she not only agreed to it, it was what her guts are. This is how she feels as well. So charity became very important in our lives. And when the success of Home Depot came out and success started to put itself into monetary funds, at one point I knew, number one, that I was going to give away almost all. And today I could tell you that 90% of the money I have in my life is going to go to philanthropy. That's 90%.
Amazing.
That's number one. Number two, we set up our organization, the Marcus Foundation, which is, and I did this while I was at Handy Dan. I had an office downstairs, and we operated the foundation, and we started to bring people aboard that could help us do all these things. And I see one of the first things we did was, because remember, when we opened in Atlanta in 1979, the first store was 1980, I had no money. I was basically broke at that point because all the money I had was going into Home Depot, and there was very little besides that. And when I stopped and thought about Atlanta and Georgia, what they did for us, at one point, Billy and I, that's my wife, decided we had to do something spectacular for Georgia, thanking them, the customers, because the success of Home Depot that allowed them to become a billionaire started with Georgia. And so we built the Georgia Aquarium. We decided to build, and we put $250 million into building it so they could open it with no debt and run it like a business. And it was going to be the biggest aquarium in the world, the best aquarium in the world, that we would have fish and animals that nobody else had under one roof. And we had the whale sharks, which is the first in North America. Nobody's ever had that. Whale sharks we brought them in at 18 or 19 feet. They will grow to 45 feet. And they're now something like 28 feet. So they're pretty big, and they're getting bigger, and other things, belugas and dolphins, and you name it, we got it. And it's the biggest aquarium in the world right now.
Wow.
The biggest in the world. Nobody touches it. And I could tell you that the service level in the aquarium is like it is in the Home Depot and like it is in every medical facility that I'm involved with.
Well, tell me a little bit more about your focus on veterans and what you've done and for veterans, and what made you passionate about doing that.
Okay, well, it started with the story about a young man at Shepherd Center in Atlanta who came into Shepherd Center. He was a veteran. He was lying in a VA bed for like 7 months. He was semi-paralyzed, incomplete paralysis, they call it. And he was laying in bed with bed sores, and his mother watched what happened. They were doing nothing for him. Alana Shepard, his mother did not stand for it. She contacted her senators, members of the House, Vice President of the United States, the governor. I mean, she was a pain in the rear end for everybody. And, you know, they say the squeaky wheel gets what they want.
Yeah.
And they had to get rid of her. And they said, what do you want? We'll do whatever you want. She said, I want my kid to go to Shepherd Center. He came to Shepherd Center, and within 6 weeks, he was walking with braces. And I saw that story, and the Shepherd put out a paper, and I said, holy mackerel, and I called Alana Shepard, and I said, are you getting many people coming in? And she said, yes, every day. She said, but we can't take them. It's too expensive. So I said, let's start something and let's do something. And we started this thing called Operation Share. And pretty soon we found out the real issue is the invisible wound. That's post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury. And at that time, like most Americans, I didn't understand what was going on. At that time, 20 to 22 young people and older people were committing suicide every day. People were putting their lives on the line for this country, fighting in the wars, going out there, putting their lives at risk, were coming back broken. About a third of them came back broken, a third. And we got the news today, just today, this horrible news, that the number went up after the COVID. The number is now 30. 30 young men and women, people who deserve a hell of a lot more, just not being treated, not being taken care of. And my heart goes out to them. I mean,
but you're doing something about it.
Yeah,
what are you doing?
Well,
tell
you have
us
to
what
remember,
we can do.
first of all, I love this country. People have put their lives on the line. By the way, I served in the military. I was in the Air National Guard, and we never got called up, but I was ready to go. But I recognize that these people have put so much on the line, so we decided we wanted to do something about it. We hired a young man to help us. Between the two of us, we said, the one thing we can do is try to solve this problem of traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress. And the University of Colorado came to me, and what they wanted to do, they wanted to take care of veterans who had traumatic brain injury or traumatic brain injury specifically, not post-traumatic stress. Now, by this time at Operation Share, we'd already been in business for like 6 years or 7 years. We had taken care of about 700 young men and women, but we had not had one suicide. And I'm happy to tell you, to this day, we don't have one suicide from all these people. So we have a program today where the efficiency, the efficacy is somewhere around 85%. That of the people that we get in, and that's by the way, at the Operation Share, the number is about 90%. So we knew we had a winning formula. So we went out and found other hospitals to do this. And we intend to have enough of these facilities, if we're lucky, because we need philanthropists to help us. Mm-hmm. Because every time we open a place like we did New Orleans, Tulane, we had local people in the area that decided they wanted to support the program. So this is a successful program. And between the two, we intend to take care of about 10,000 veterans a year.
Wow.
10,000. We want to get it up to 20,000. And we are saving lives now. We know we're saving lives. We have story after story of people that were ready to commit suicide that didn't and came to us and now are able to earn a living, keep their families. And I could tell you that the only thing we're lacking now are other philanthropists that we need desperately in cities. And we're looking for people to do this all around the country. So we're asking philanthropists to step up.
Well, I would love to hear more about some of your other interests too. So I know you've funded some work on fighting anti-Semitism. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, I grew up in Newark, New Jersey. I remember and being Jewish, I, you know, I had episodes constantly. This was not new for us. Uh, Jews, remember, up until the beginning of the War of Independence in Israel, Jews could not get a job in a major law firm. As I told you, I couldn't get into med school. You couldn't get a job in a bank. Most corporations didn't hire Jews. So Jews found another way. They started their own law firms. They started their own accounting firms. They started their own manufacturing firms. But life was not great for us. But with the coming of Israel, people suddenly realized that Jews were oppressed, that they realized that the Holocaust was a real thing, and things turned around. And it went fine for all these years. And I could tell you that at one point I felt that anti-Semitism had lowered itself to a level that, you know, was not even an issue, where life, you didn't worry about it. But over the last, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years, it's gotten so bad. Anti-Semitism on campuses, especially, but everywhere. You read it in the paper, you see they bomb a synagogue, people being accosted in New York City because they're wearing a yarmulke. And I'm really worried about anti-Semitism. I never worried about it before because it never reared its really ugly head. But today on campuses, it's almost impossible for Jewish kids. Came up with something called Route 1, which is sending high school students who are not yet in college, before they go to university, to give them the full story of what's happening in Israel. They'll get all sides. They'll hear the Palestinian side, they'll hear the Israeli side, so that they, in fact, can fight this with the knowledge, and that they'll be able to understand as a group. They'll have groups of kids that have gone to Israel and know the facts. And knowing the facts is the best weapon you can have against anti-Semitism, especially on the campuses. And that program is on the way. As we speak, there are 800 kids there now. We will send about 4,000 kids this year. We'll send about 8,000 next year. We hope to get it to 12, 15,000, and then up to 20,000.
Are there anything else that you're particularly proud of that you're doing right now in your philanthropic work?
Well, we have a lot of clinical trials going on. We've been responsible for building stroke centers at Grady Hospital, an emergency room trauma center at Grady Hospital, a big urban center in Atlanta. We built Piedmont Hospital, the Marcus Wing at the in Atlanta. We built the Marcus Neurological Center in Boca Raton, Florida. We have clinical trials in cancer. We're handling autism children. I got involved with autism 40 years ago, before I started Home Depot, just about the same time. A young woman that worked for me had a child that had some very severe behavioral problems and things that we didn't understand. And she was taken off of work all the time, and I couldn't understand what she was doing. And she explained to me, her child, what she was going through with her child at the age of 4 years of age. Doctors didn't know what it was, didn't know how to treat it. And I got very interested, and I said, are there other women, other families like this? Because I had never heard of it. And she introduced me to other families, and I saw that this was a dilemma that nobody was attacking. And in my travels opening Home Depot stores around the country, I would stop off in places like Boston and see what they had up there, and they would have some program. And by the time this came around, the word autism had grown, that these children, most of them, were autistic. And I found out the facts here, that 1 out of 58 children born in the United States, around the world, anywhere and around the world, 1 out of 58 is autistic. And the number is higher for boys. 1 out of 35 boys is autistic. Now that's a big number. And these children are in various forms. Some of them are nonverbal and stay nonverbal. And typically, you don't identify a child as being autistic until they're 5 years old, which means that at 5 years, nothing has been done about them. And at 5 years of age, you find out you have autistic children. We actually convinced Emory University in Atlanta to let us open up, under the auspices of Emory, an independent affiliate called the Marcus Autism Center. Once people heard that we had a program for these children, now they had a place to go. And then we opened another place, and that wasn't sufficient. And we finally ended up building a new Marcus Autism Center. And I could tell you today, we take care of more children at the Marcus Autism Center than anywhere in the world by a multiple of 8. Now that's a lot. We take care of about 7,000 kids a year. And then we do thousands through the media of telephone. And in addition to that, we developed a program along with some great researchers using stem cells for treating autism. And we did many programs, clinical trials at Duke University. And we found out through the first 2 clinical trials that it works well. And that with children over 70 IQ, it can change behavior. It could change a lot of these difficulties with children. And we're hoping that the 3rd clinical trial will convince the FDA about it. The FDA has approved the clinical trials, but now the FDA is going to approve this, and then we're going to move it to hospitals all over the United States. We're going to bring it all over the United States.
Wow.
And I can't tell you there's maybe a million autistic kids in the United States. There are millions around the world. And so the programs that we develop, if they're successful, will be great. We also have a device that we're working on at the Marcus Autism Center that is now before the FDA, where we could determine that a child is autistic at the age of 3 months. At 3 months. Mm. And so you could begin treatments at the age of 3 months and actually change their life, change their lifestyle. Remember, now the average is 5 years. So key is to get it to 3 months. And this is going to be a big breakthrough. So we've been involved with autism. And then we started something called Autism Speaks because we wanted to build recognition in the United States. People didn't know about this problem the same way they don't know about 30 kids committing suicide. They don't know about this 1 out of 58. And today, because of Autism Speaks, which we also started, that's become well known. They come out, they're looking for help, and they're getting help in lots of places around the country. So this is a big achievement. If you want to ask the big achievements in my life, is Home Depot, number 1. Number 2 right now is autism. Number 3 is what we're doing with the Gary Sinise Avalon Fund. And then you put in all these other medical things that we're doing in buildings, hospitals, stroke centers that we're building, et cetera, et cetera. And we're very active. We are very busy. And at 92, I thought I was retiring at the age of after 2002. My life is so filled every day. But I think that this is what keeps me going. And I made a commitment at my 90th birthday. By the way, do you know what they did for me on my 90th birthday?
I heard a little bit about it, but tell me.
It was really great. They actually had a birthday party for me in Atlanta, and they were going to raise $90 million for the charities that we're involved with. They actually raised $118 million.
Amazing.
And it was a great night. And it went to all the charities, Operation Share. It went into Operation Share, the Shepherd Center. It went to Grady Hospital. It went to all the things that we have supported over these years. So I made a commitment that night. I'm going to live to 100 and continue doing this because at 100, I want to raise $100 million for all the charities we work for.
I hope and I think you will.
We're going to work at it.
That's truly incredible. What an incredible life so far. And I wonder, as people are starting to think, young entrepreneurs who look up to you are starting to think about their philanthropy and what they can do. What's your advice to them? What would you say?
Well, first of all, here's the thing about philanthropies that bother me a lot. Number one, guy's very successful in his business. You didn't get there by being a dummy. You got there by being, totally involved. You're emotionally involved, physically involved, financially involved, and you create all these things. And you create these great things, and then you become wealthy, and you decide that you have to give money away. Some people only give money away because of a tax deduction. That's the only reason they do it. Okay, or to get their names on a building so that they're recognized. But other people, I turn to the people and I say, wouldn't you want to do something great with your money? Wouldn't you want to invest in something that's going to help other people? Wouldn't you want to get the feeling in your heart the way I do every time somebody comes up to me and thanks me for not what I did, but what my money accomplished? That feeling is better than having a great financial statement or any than the other nonsense, the toys, the boats and the ships and the planes and all that crap. I mean, somewhere you need to have, in your emotions, you have to feel good about what you're doing. So I'm telling you, philanthropists, put your brains into philanthropy. Put your emotions in. Don't just write checks. Get involved. Every one of the successful programs that we're involved with today, we get involved with. We're totally involved with. The Avalon Fund, Jerry Sinise Avalon Fund, we're totally involved with that. Autism Center, we're totally involved with it. And we go back, we don't micromanage, but we offer suggestions. We create ideas for them. Like autism, we came up with the idea of the stem cells. This is how a great entrepreneur should operate himself. So those entrepreneurs out there, think about this. Put your brains, don't put it on hold. And I've been with these guys, and they say, well, my family gives all my money away. Come on, how stupid is that? You worked, you made the money. Why aren't you involved with it? And why don't you put the emotions into it that you put into everything? Signing a check, that any dummy can do that. If you're a dummy, keep on doing it, okay? That's my advice to those. Now, young people, I could tell you this. The experience that I had many years ago, of saving a life, I cannot tell you what this does for you internally, in your brain, in your heart, in your psyche. How do you feel about yourself? And if you don't feel good about yourself, you got a problem, okay? If you don't like who you are, and I'm telling you that philanthropy, with the rewards that they show, can do a lot for you and make you feel good about being a human being, because that's what it's all about. After all, you can buy just so much toys. You can't buy more toys. I can't live in more houses than I have now. I really can't. I can't buy more clothes than I have now. But my God, if I could save some lives, that's worthwhile. That gives me this more pleasure than having a big yacht.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today and for sharing all of that. It was really and truly a pleasure and an honor.
Well, thank you. It's great meeting you, and I hope you have good success with your program.
Thank you for watching Doers to Donors. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. For more episodes, visit us at philanthropyroundtable.org, and please follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook.